Are you crazy? It's a can of old fish.
Don't tell me how to spend my money.
If we had all the money in the world, we'd start off by purchasing a huge house and a fancy car before treating our friends and family members. After a while, we think we'd get into a habit of replacing our everyday essential items with their more expensive counterparts, too. That seems to be the general rule of thumb for the millionaires of the world, who seem to take a shining to everyday objects that are coated in diamonds, remade in gold, or changed and replaced with a different expensive element. And more to the point, who's to stop millionaires from purchasing them? Let's take a look. We'll start this video with one of the world's most famous billionaires, Bill Gates. He might use huge chunks of his money for good, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been wasting some of it on some slightly more rogue items. For example, the Da Vinci Scientific Journal, which set him back a cool $30 million 25 years ago. The 72-page document, which contains Leonardo's sketches and ideas about subjects like astronomy, mechanics, botany, mathematics, and architecture, was written between 1506 and 1510. Bill was fascinated by Leonardo's Renaissance way of thinking, and he wanted to share Leonardo's sense of wonder and curiosity with the world. How much would you pay for a website? We don't know about you, but we wouldn't spend millions on a domain name. But if you're in the market for a pricey yet relatively useless purchase, consider buying the domain carinsurance.com for $49.7 million. After buying insure.com and insurance.com, a company called QuinStreet paid $49.7 million in cash for carinsurance.com and related entities. According to compete.com, carinsurance.com gets over 200,000 unique visitors each month, but we don't know if that's really worth the huge price tag attached. Impressively enough, carinsurance.com isn't the world's most expensive domain name. First place falls to lasvegas.com, which is worth a whopping $90 million. Further down the list, you'll find insurance.com for $35.6 million, also owned by QuinStreet, and vacationrentals.com for $35 million. Think of all the properties or fast cars you could buy with that amount. But at least you can keep a domain name for a few years. This next item, you'll want to discard it as soon as you've used it once. We're talking about the $1.38 million gold toilet paper, which does exactly what it says on the tin. If this isn't a useless purchase, we don't know what is. After an American designer called Kelly Wearstler posted a photo of a roll of gold toilet paper onto Instagram, the image began to pique everyone's interest. It turns out this roll of 22-karat gold toilet paper can be bought at Toilet Paper Man at the price of $1,376,900 for a roll. Its glossy look makes this weird innovation a bit over the top, but it may just appeal to the incredibly rich. That is, if ultra-soft rolls of toilet paper do not suffice. Let's stay on the gold theme, but we'll move on to an item that you could wear time and time again, and you'll probably want to when you know exactly what it's worth. A man named Dada Pugh earned himself the nickname the Gold Man after he splashed out a huge $250,000 on a gold t-shirt. Weighing a staggering 7 pounds, it cost him a cool $250,000. Given its impractical nature, the shirt only gets an outing on special occasions like parties and important functions. Dada also has a security guard with him whenever he travels when wearing the shirt to make sure that no one tries their hand at stealing the gold shirt for themselves. The finished shirt is heavy to wear and a little clunky. It can't be washed, so care needs to be taken not to let it get dirty or too sweaty. The Heinzmann Crystal Piano is more than your typical piano. As well as being made partially of crystal, it's also worth $3.22 million. It was made completely of crystal and made its debut during the opening ceremony of the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games for the world to admire. This stylish and unique piano was sold to an anonymous bidder in an auction after the invigorating performance by the world-famous pianist Lang Lang during the Games. Behold the splendor of crystal clear transparency and melody, because we're betting that this piano offers a delightful tune to go with the impressive price tag. A good haircut can cost a pretty penny, but how much would you reasonably shell out for a trim? We're betting you wouldn't spend even half as much as the Sultan of Brunei, who flew his favorite hairdresser over from the United Kingdom at a cost of $15,000. It's thought to be the world's most expensive haircut after he hired a private suite on a Singapore Airlines flight to carry Ken Modestow, who runs a barbershop at the Dorchester Hotel in Mayfair, the 7,000 miles to his home to attend to his hair. The Sultan, who is one of the world's richest men with a multi-billion fortune, also paid for his barber's accommodations for a few nights and gave him several $1,000s in payment. Back in London, this barber charges just $40 for a haircut. He's been cutting the Sultan's hair for 16 years, sometimes going every 3 or 4 weeks. How much would you pay for a shark in a giant fish tank? Not a lot? Well, somebody thought differently when they spent around $7.5 million on Damien Hirst's tiger shark piece of artwork. One of the most famous icons of modern art, Damien Hirst's pickled shark usually goes by its full name, The Physical Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Living. It was paid for by an unnamed U.S. collector and was donated to the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Damien initially spent just over $6,000 on purchasing the shark back in the early 1990s, so the multi-million-dollar price tag was quite the markup. The shark was the first of a string of controversial works by Damien and one of the many animals in formaldehyde that he has created. A pickled sheep, another one of his works, is thought to have netted $2.4 million. Diamonds might be a girl's best friend, but if you've got the cash floating around, they could also be your pet pooch's best friend. Case in point, this $3.2 million dog collar. Enter the decadent array of collars available for millionaire pet owners who dote upon their dogs via a collection called La Collection de Bijoux. These collars are pretty special in that they're coated with precious jewels. They're covered in mostly diamonds and sapphires and range from $150,000 to a staggering $3.2 million for the most expensive design. Created by I Love Dogs Diamonds, each collar is custom made and takes 8 to 12 weeks to complete. Not that your dog will be able to count down the days until they receive their new collar. The most extravagant is the 52-carat diamond collar, dubbed the world's most expensive, which includes 1,600 diamonds. Our next expensive item is also animal-focused, but for a completely different reason. A bluefin tuna sold for a record $3.1 million at the first auction of the year at Tokyo's new fish market in 2019. Kiyoshi Kimura, who owns the Sushi Zanmai restaurant chain, paid 333.6 million yen for the 613-pound fish. It was caught off the coast of northern Japan's Aomori Prefecture by fishermen from a small town called Oma, which has a nationwide reputation for the quality of its tuna. The fish might have been quite the catch, but even Kiyoshi admitted that he might have paid a little too much for the tuna. Because in reality, how good a quality can one fish be despite the price of millions of dollars? This next item might not be useless, but we'd put good money on most of it not actually being used. We're talking about a billion-dollar property called Antilia in Mumbai, India. This earthquake-proof building is owned by Mukesh Ambani, a business tycoon and the wealthiest man in India. The 400,000-square-foot building is 27 stories high, but since some ceilings are double height, it's closer to the size of a 40-story building. There are plenty of staff members looking after the house, if you can really call it a house, and regular cleaners. But here's the catch. Only 3 people live in this huge building full-time. 2 of Mukesh's kids are away at college, but their rooms still get cleaned even when there's no one there. The lobby alone has 9 elevators, and there's also a theater that seats 50 people. We'll remind you again, only 3 people live here. Antilia has the problem of having too much space, unlike Manhattan, where space is something that people are desperate to claim. So much, in fact, that some people are selling single parking spaces for a huge $1 million. For Manhattanites who require a set of wheels and a guaranteed place to park it, the cost of the car itself is a mere drop in the bucket when it comes to expenses. Because at least 2 new condo developments in New York City are charging $1 million for a permanent place to park a single car, according to the Wall Street Journal. That's right, a spot measuring approximately 150 to 200 square feet will set you back more than the price of some of the apartment units in the city, especially when you break it down to cost per square foot. Surely it would be cheaper to just hail a cab than to splash out on one of these spaces. If you haven't heard of the 1909-11 T206 Tobacco Honus Wagner baseball card, then it's worth a mention just to gasp at how extortionately priced this single baseball card is. In May of 2019, this card changed hands for $1.2 million. Why is it so expensive, you ask? Since the day the Wagner card was issued by the American Tobacco Company, it's been steeped in mystique. The Hall of Fame Pittsburgh Pirates shortstop and 8-time National League batting champion forced the company to halt production on the card because he either objected to smoking or not being reimbursed for the use of his image. As a result, there's thought to be only 75 of these cards in the world. Over the years, this card has gained value again and again when it's been resold. So while it might be a good investment piece, it's still a huge amount of money for what's essentially just a piece of thick paper. Fancy a cup of tea? You might be able to gulp down on a usual cup, but you'll want to enjoy this $14,000 diamond tea bag for every last sip in order to get your money's worth. The tea bags were made by Boodle's Jewelers to celebrate PG Tip's 75th birthday. There are approximately 280 diamonds surrounding the outside of the tea bag, and it took the company 3 months to complete just one. So if you thought that rich people avoided tea to drink only expensive drinks, think again. It turns out that rich people do also drink tea, they just drink tea that costs thousands of dollars instead. And rich people like playing with toys, too. Especially their kids. But don't expect to be invited around to crack open the Legos for an afternoon of building. Nope, the millionaires of the world are stepping things up a notch with solid gold Lego bricks. We'll clarify something here because you can't just buy these Lego bricks at any typical Lego store across the globe. Apparently, they were awarded to employees and business partners of the company back in the late 70s and early 80s. The bricks are around 25.65 grams of 14-karat gold and are the same size and shape as the original 2x4 Lego brick. If you figure out the price for an ounce of gold, it would be significantly cheaper just to commission your own brick. But we guess the novelty here is the history behind the brick rather than the fact that it's a chunk of pure gold. But we had to save the best until last for this video. So now let's talk about rich people ice cubes. You heard us right there. A California company sells luxury ice cubes for $325 for 50 cubes. And when we say ice, we do just mean frozen water. Like you can make it yourself using your own tap and fridge freezer. According to Glace Luxury Ice, their product is superior to regular ice because it's, quote, purified of minerals, additives, and other pollutants, end quote. Glace Ice claims that the design of their cubes provide minimum dilution, maximum cooling, and should be enjoyed with premium spirits. So if you're thinking of stocking up to cool down your lemonade, think again. And that's not all. Aside from selling your regular ice cubes, the company also sells ice in the shape of the Mariko sphere. The sphere is the most efficient shape in nature and the most mathematically efficient way to cool your drink, according to the company's website. That's all for 15 completely useless things millionaires waste their money on. Would you splash your cash on any of these items? Let us know in the comments down below.